Well, good evening, folks. Welcome to Solid Rock Baptist Church. We're glad you tuned in to us today. And we changed our Wednesday meeting time, Wednesday evening, to more to a regular Old Baptist meeting time, I guess you'd say, for our midweek service on Wednesday night. Here we are, 7 o'clock in the evening. If you tuned in, we're glad. And if not, then you can watch it later. So.
And if you're here, hey, good to see you.
Okay, we begin our song part of the service. It's easy to find. We're on page 1, page number 1.
All right.
So that's going to be easy to start us out. Page 1. Oh, worship the King. That's what we're here for. Worship the Lord. When the music gets started. Amen. All right. Turn your page 129. Hymn 129. I will favor here. At the cross. At the cross.
Alas, and did my Savior bleed, and did my sovereign die? Will he devote that sacred head for such a worm as I? At the cross, where I first saw the light, and the burden of my heart rolled away. It was there by faith I received my sight, and now I am happy all the day. Was it for Christ that I have done? He groaned upon the tree. Amazing pity, grace unknown, and love beyond degree. At the cross where I first saw the light, and the burden of my heart rolled away. It was there by faith I received my sight, and now I am happy all the day. Will light the sun in darkness hide, and shine his glories in. When Christ the mighty Maker died for man, the creature's sin. At the cross where was there by faith I received my sight, and now I am happy all the day. But drops of grief can never repay the debt of love I owe. Here, Lord, I give myself away. 'Tis all that I can do. At the cross, where I first saw the light, and the burden of my heart rolled away. It was there by faith I received my sight, and now I am happy all the day.
All right,
Do the other one.
all right, we'll do one more song just before Pastor comes and lets us know what's going to be happening in the future and leads us in prayer and does.
Boy, if I knew what was gonna happen in the future, it'd be pretty good.
I'm making you sound like a real seer now,
Yes.
isn't it? All right, well,
yes.
whatever will be, will be.
Okay,
That sounds like a song too, isn't it?
Okay, so Ross,
Secular song
There
there.
it is.
Whatever will be, will be. Okay, 308 in your hymnal. 308. Okay, we'll sing 3 verses of this, and see how that goes. I'm rushing
Of the upward way, new heights I'm gaining every day. Deliberating as I'm onward bound, Lord, plant my feet on higher ground. Lord, lift me up and let me stand by faith on heaven's table land, a higher plane than I have found. Lord, plant my feet on higher ground. My heart has no desire to stay where doubts arise and fears dismay. No storm may dwell where these abound. My prayer, my aim is higher ground. Lord, lift me up and let me stand by faith on heaven's stable land, a higher plane than I have found. Lord, plant my feet on higher ground. I want to live above the world, though Satan's desire set me on hurl. For faith has taught the joyful sound, the song of saints on higher ground. Lord, lift me up and let me stand by faith on heaven's stable land, a higher plane than I have found. Lord, plant my feet on higher ground.
Music on this now. I want to
Scale the utmost height and catch a gleam of glory bright. But still I pray, till heaven I found. Lord, lead me on to higher ground. Lord, lift me up and let me stand by faith on heaven's stable land, a higher plane than I have found. Lord, plant my feet on higher ground.
All right, this world's not my home either. We're looking for something much better than what's going on in America today, I'll tell you that. Okay, Pastor.
Alrighty. It's Wednesday evening.
Amen.
How about that? 7 o'clock, 7:10 right now, actually. Just like the split. Alrighty, let's go ahead and have our prayer time right now. A lot to pray for as far as the nation goes. It's sad. It is. I mean, you know, you never, who knew? I don't know. But keep praying for our country, keep praying for everything that's going on. Yeah. It's good to be back on Wednesday night. Keep praying for our church, our folks here, folks that are here, folks that are not here, folks that hopefully will be back again. You know, we're just gonna go ahead and meet, and we'll talk more about that in a little bit. What's happening in the future? I don't know. I don't put that pressure on me. I can't tell you.
Well, what's going to happen in church?
What's gonna happen tomorrow? I don't know.
What are we planning for church?
What am I planning? I don't know, man. Who knows these days? Great, then went on. We're gonna be here Sunday.
Amen.
I'll tell you that. Unless the rapture happens, which would not really shock us right now to be frank with you, but hey. But yeah, we're gonna be here Sunday. 10 o'clock for Sunday school, 11 o'clock for church.
Very good.
Got an evangelist company July 5th.
Oh,
That's Brother Pruitt. He's going to somewhere in South America. I forgot where. It's a big place. You know, you knew. Nice young man, him and his wife. I think they got a little girl. Which they can leave her when they leave. It's fine. We'll take her. That's fine. We'll treat her good. We'll raise her as our own. But we'll be like the sea-wolf raising the little human baby. But yeah, pray for that's coming up on July 5th. And then, see what happens.
No.
All right, who's got prayer requests? Who's got requests for which we need to pray, sir?
We got an automated call from my wife's home today,
Uh-huh.
and it's hard to tell how accurate it was, but they said close to 20 people have the virus at their home.
Uh-huh.
And I think that there's been one reported death, which is why they all have to stay in the rooms.
Okay.
We can't even have window visits at the front door.
Yeah.
It's getting that bad. So anyway, just pray for her and everybody else there.
Okay. Anybody else? Sir?
Yeah, pray for my son's family, and they moved to Ohio, but they don't have a house yet. They're staying with a family member, and just pray that they can find a house soon, because they don't need to be taking up somebody else's house space, you know what I mean? And I'm sure they're anxious to find a place, so they need to find a home
Sure.
in Ohio.
All right, yeah.
Our sister-in-law Sharon, she had surgery for her stage 1 breast cancer. She was doing the chemo and radiation and having problems with that. Doctors are worried, giving her anything for the pain. So she's decided, since they got it all, to stop the chemo and radiation.
Thank you, Sharon. Ma'am?
For any of the unsaved and their families, I'm sure we all have people who need to be saved.
All right. Anybody else? It's not everybody else. All right, Charlie, want to pray for us tonight?
Our gracious and loving Heavenly Father, we thank you so much, Lord, for our midweek service here. Lord, we just thank you for those that came out tonight to help, Lord, lift us up in prayer, each other, and we just come boldly to the throne of grace. That's only by the grace of God. We're able to do that, Lord, by the shed blood of our Lord Jesus Christ. And as the sister asked for prayer, Lord, for unsaved people, that first and foremost, that's why our church is here, Lord. We want to see people saved, and we just love our pastor, and we thank you for all your good teachings. And Lord, help us hold him up high and lofty there, Lord, as he teaches us from your word. And pray that we can bring some people in, and the ones that are unsaved, Lord, whether it be family members or just people we meet and greet, Lord, that they will take an invitation and come and hear preaching of your word, Lord, that they might be saved. And it will just be a wonderful thing. So we just thank you that we have an open door at the throne of grace, Lord, that we can come and just bring all these requests before you. You know, we all have many and multiple requests, Lord, in our daily prayer time. So help us not to fail praying for the many things and many people that are on our list. And we start now with just praying for our country. We just kind of dancing around, going from one thing to another. Whatever seems to be the top of the list, that's what just finds the news. I don't know what happened with COVID-19 so much, but now it's mostly about rioting, and Lord, we need some stability in our country. We need people to wake up to realize that just creating havoc in our country isn't a solution, that they need to have to use their good minds that the Lord's given them and figure out what they can do to make the country better, what they can do to make their cities and their own neighborhoods and just their own homes right. And if the homes right, Lord, we know that everything else will fall into order. So we pray for our country in general and all the problems that's happening is. And so we just pray it will be done, and help us to just keep fighting a good fight there. We pray for our upcoming events, Lord. As Pastor mentioned, we're going to have a evangelistic meeting about a month from now, so we look forward to that on July 5th. We pray for the evangelist and his family, Lord, watch over them as they prepare to go to the field. And we just pray for him. Pray for my son, who's living in Ohio now, and we just pray that they have some good fortune in home hunting. Lord, they're trying to find a home close to where they're staying right now, and help them to search out the surrounding areas where they're at, and whoever's helping them try to find a home, and whatever agency they're working from, Lord, just pray that they find a place soon, that they don't impose and wear out their welcome where they're at now. So we just pray for them, and we thank you that they're doing well other than that. We pray for Brother Dave's family, Lord. We pray for his sister, and if it's in a home, we pray for your wife, Lord. We just found out that they have a problem with people having COVID-19 now there, and so they're all quarantined in the rooms, but they're doing a good thing. So we do pray for Marilyn there, watch over her, keep her safe in that situation, and I pray for all the people that's working there. We pray for Pastor's wife, her relative there, the gal with the cancer. Lord, we just pray that she's feeling better, and that we know she stopped her chemo and radiation. We just pray that, Lord, you just show you great power in healing, and that the cancer would return, that she would be cancer-free very soon, and that everything would go well for her. So we pray for Sharon. And again, we just pray for all the unsafe people that we know, and the ones that we pray for, Lord, we just pray for their way in hearts and minds. We see people that we've known for years and years, and they're still unsaved, Lord. That's really troubling. People just won't hear. They have ears, but they don't hear a thing they tell. And it's just sad. And so, Lord, we're just asking you to wake them up, the ones that we have opportunity to talk to. And we'd love to see great things happen. Bless us in spite of ourselves, Lord, and bless us, little church, and be with our pastor as he finishes up the service tonight. And we're going to thank you for all these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
All right, think about if you will turn to Judges chapter 17. Last week in Judges chapter 17, if you will. Judges 17, we're going to look at a couple verses here and then go to Judges 21. Judges 17. I'm trying to get a microphone for the phone here so that the voice on this will be better. It's not like I could really walk into a store and find one. I wish I could, but trying to get one. To get the sound quality on this a little bit better. The picture's great. I mean, look at this gorgeous face. I mean, picture everybody up, you know. But yeah, the sound is a little tinny, and we're working on that. So I thank you for coming in and watching tonight, and I hope will be a blessing to you. Chapter 17 of Judges, and we'll look at verse 6, if you will. In those days there was no king in Israel, but every man did that which was right in his own eyes. Turn, if you will, to chapter 21, the very last verse of Judges, and look at chapter 21 and then verse 25. I mean, I could have stayed in 17 and read this. Yes, it's the same thing. In those days, there was no king in Israel. Every man did that which was right in his own eyes. There is one thing missing from chapter 6, from 17:6 to 21:25. It's identical except for one word. What word is it? To make it look. It's killing time here. No, I'm just kidding. It's like when you write an essay and you break down all this stuff and you use all the descriptive words. It was very, very, very cold out. Yeah, not 3 words out. There you go. What's the one word that's different? But. Exactly. But is different there. In those days there was no king in Israel. Every man did that which was right in his own eyes. In in those days there was no king in Israel, but every man did that which was right in his own eyes. Why does one verse say but and the other one doesn't? What is the significance of that? I don't know. Wait a minute, why do you come up with something flowery? I have no clue. But it's different, whatever. I'm not gonna lie to you, I can come up with some flowery expectations and probably you find one from somebody smarter than me. Can't really that hurt. But yeah, they got the different there is, yeah. What you have here, chapter 17 to 21, we have the last judge in Judges, which was Samson. Now, he was not the last judge overall, but he was the last judge. There were 12 judges that are mentioned in the book of Judges. You have 6 major ones and 6 minor ones. What's the difference between the major and the minor one? I don't know. No, I'm just kidding. That I do know. This basically, it's like major prophets and minor prophets. Major prophets are basically, the books are bigger. You know, Isaiah's a big book, Jeremiah's a big book, Ezekiel's a big book, Daniel's a big book. Those 4 are major prophets, and then the other ones are minor. No disrespect meant, but that's the way they are. But what you have here, I love looking at this, because there's a lot that you learn regarding this, or what these verses tell you, about the condition that Israel was in at this time. There's a couple things that we're going to basically springboard off this. This is probably, a civics lesson, if anything, on how was Israel this way. Now, this is where we are tonight. But what this is a very telling passage that is very similar, or giving some insight on where we are today. This is the first Wednesday in June 3rd. There's a lot of stuff going on right now, and if you watch it, part of it's depressing, part of it's angering, part of it is puzzling, part of it's mystifying. Some of it you just scratch your head and wonder, I don't know what this is. I was talking about a few things before church on some things that you see, and it just makes you go, huh. When you've got people that are kissing the feet of other people, when you've got people that are bowing down and kneeling before other people, when you have people that are talking about animal rights and how important they are, and we should be prosecuting innocent animals, I didn't know we brought them to court. The lady who covered herself in human excrement because she wanted to humble herself. That's some weird stuff going on. I mean, you look at the other stuff and it's sad. You hear of the loss of life and it's angering that there's such disregard for human life that we're going to protest the taking of one life by killing other people. Okay, makes sense. And so all of this, and yet, you look at where we are right now. Now, just to give you a little historical perspective on this as we get into this is nothing new. For us, in our lifetime, this is new. But attempts like this have been made before. If you go back to the 20th century, just about 100 years ago, after World War I, you had some very similar circumstances. You had rioting take place. You had there was a major terrorist bomb that went off on Wall Street in 1919. All of this was right before the election of 1920. And it's very, and instead of using African Americans or in that, it was all centered around immigrants, where they went into immigrant neighborhoods, told them they had no chance here, that they needed them, and they tried to spread communism, Marxism, whatever. They got infiltrated into unions, and it was a mess. It really was. And it was, honestly, if you read about that, it's eerily similar to what we're going through right now. I mean, honestly, you read about it, read about the Palmer raids, you read about the different terrorist, the strikes that took place. A lot of this, again, was through unions, where you would have citywide strikes. Believe it or not, one of the biggest ones was in Seattle. Back in 1919, where thousands of people went on strike, and there was a lot of violence and whatnot. And you see a turning of the tide in cities to where you're getting this left-wing leaning whatever you wanna call it. And so, you know, we went through this as a nation 100 years ago. The interesting thing enough is that in 1920, you had an election take place, you know, of all things, Warren Harding gets elected. Warren was an interesting character, but to say the least, he didn't last long. Probably got murdered by his wife, but hey, you know what, he was a flatterer, and some people think that his wife poisoned him. It happens, what are you gonna do? Not condoning it, no, don't do it. Not condoning either end of it, don't go cheating on your wife, and don't go poisoning your husband, either way. Either one's wrong. You know, stay faithful and keep the arsenic out of the oatmeal. That would do us all a good deal. But you had a change there, all this going on in the 20th century. But the difference now is that back then they were looked at as a offscouring or a different part of the secular society. Today they've co-opted the whole political party. What you're seeing from the Democratic Party right now is akin to what you saw 100 years ago out of the Marxists, what you saw out of the socialists, what you saw out of these people, the anarchists, and it's no different. It's just that now they're Democrats instead of being called, what they were called back in the 1800s. So I said all that to say this. One of the big movements that took place at the end of the 18th century, or 19th century, into the 20th century was anarchy. The anarchists, as a matter of fact, in Buffalo. William McKinley was assassinated by anarchists. Leon Chalgaz, who whacked him in September of 1901. And there was a movement to totally abolish government. Just to go ahead and get rid of government. And if you look at it, 3 presidents were assassinated within 35 years. Not very good job security. You know, he gets whacked in 65. Watched the whole thing on Garfield yesterday, not the cat, the president. He gets whacked in 1881 by Charles Guiteau, who was a crazy dude. And then Chalgaz gets whacked in Chile in 1901. And for his doing, he received the prize of being electrocuted in the electric chair. And they even filmed it. There is a film of Chalgaz being electrocuted. And the man who filmed it, believe it or not, was Thomas Edison. Yeah, very good. You were there. There you go. You were there. I'm sorry. What am I saying? In 1901, of course you knew it, man. You were there. But yeah, so you look at this today. Unfortunately, it's not new. There's some new wrinkles and things. But the reason it's not new is because there's nothing new under the sun. Nothing's new. There's not. You don't look at things and think, that man, gee, this never happened. Now, here, I don't think this stuff has happened here before. But in America, but mankind is like this. I mean, this is how man is. We looked at a verse, on Sunday from Zephaniah 1:17 that explained how all this comes to be. Okay, and that verse basically said, "Because you have sinned against God." This is all the offscouring sin. This is where we're at right now. This is because of our sinfulness, and this is where it led us to. And we've been seeing, and this is the segue here, in the last few weeks, the same thing that happened in Judges. Yeah, it's the same thing. Where Israel as a nation, parts of it, but they would sin and be subjugated by another country, by another people. They would repent. God would send a judge to deliver them. He would deliver them. And he would reign for a short time, but then that was the end of that. When he died, they went back and did the same thing. These 2 verses right here, again, this is after Samson, his story. And, Samson went ahead, knocked down the temple there. All the Philistines got killed that were in there. Samson wanted to die with them. He got what be careful what you wish for. You might get it. Let me die with these Philistines, and he's probably pushing thinking, oh man, I probably could have done something else. It's like, whoops, my bad. But now you get to this point right here, and there's a story at the end here, and I'm not going to take the time to go through the story and everything, about the tribe of Benjamin and what happens with them. But these 2 verses right here, which again are almost identical, tells where Israel were at this time. In those days, There was no king in Israel, but every man did that which was right in his own eyes. In those days there was no king in Israel. Every man did that which was right in his own eyes. One of the, and I've said this before, and this is not a new thing, the most important form of government is self-government. Learning to govern yourself. Whether you want to call it self-discipline, whether you want to call it self-control, whether you want to call it self-government, whatever you want to call it, and you can probably come up with other terms, self-government is the most important form of government. Learning to govern yourself. And really, the basis of morality is self-government. Learning to govern yourself. Learning to discipline yourself. Learning to control yourself. Learning to, grasping a set of mores and living accordingly. That right there, that right there is the cornerstone of any successful society. When people can govern themselves and take care of themselves, and really, there's an old definition of character that Bob Jones Sr. gave, and that was character is doing the right thing even when nobody's looking. And the idea that whether you're at work, if you don't have a boss over, watching what you're doing, whether you're whatever the case might be, there are times that you basically are left to your own self, and you have to decide that I'm going to do the right thing regardless. The Bible is chock full of stories where people did things where they thought, hey, look, I can get away with this. Moses pulled back. When Moses whacked the Egyptian, we're into the word whack today, by the way, we get paid by the word whack. When Moses whacked the Egyptian, Bible says he looked to his left and, I'm looking to my right. Well, he looked to his left and looked to his right. Okay, let me try that again. He looked to his left and looked to his right. Yes, he looked to his left and he looked to his right. Okay? And he went ahead and slew the Egyptian that was beating on the Israelite. Moses thought, okay, I can get away with this, but a stonada, you're forgetting one thing. There is somebody else there. There's the Israelite that was getting beat on. Really, well, there's nobody here. And, this guy will appreciate what I'm doing for him. I'm killing this Egyptian for him. He's going to go back and tell everybody what I did, and everybody's going to love me because I went ahead and killed this guy. And then after that, the people became very leery of him. He went ahead and tried to mediate something between two Egyptians and two Israelites. And one of them said, what do? Kill me like you killed the Egyptian? What's wrong with you? So Moses had to hightail it out of there. But we've got to learn to govern yourself, to control yourself, to discipline yourself. When it comes right down to it, when you look at the levels of government, it starts with self-government. And from there, if there's a lack of self-government, there will, on a grander scale, there's a failure in a community. Not every community is different. We are in a very diverse country. There's city life, there's country life, there's small town life. I grew up in the city. I grew up in the city of Buffalo. In my life, I've lived in different places where my life has been totally different because of where I've lived. I've lived in city life. I lived in rural life. When I lived in Gettysburg for 3 years. I lived outside of town, really on this little side road there. Cool place. It's right down the street from the roundabout in Gettysburg. But there was nobody around for quite some distance. Our driveway was like a tenth of a mile, and it was never marked off. And my car got stuck all the time in the snow when it snowed out. And sometimes it was like, we ain't going anywhere. It'd sit there for 2-3 days in the snow, but it was a totally different life. In California, I lived in a small town, smaller Pico, California. Cool little place, loved it there. Small town. Here I live in the burbs. I live in Chickamauga now. I went to college in a town that really didn't have much around. What I'm saying is that every place that you live is different. And you have urban life, you have suburban life, you have rural life, whatever the case might be. But in these communities, if you have a prevalence of lacking of self-government, you're gonna have a failure in that community. When you have enough communities fail, you have failure as a nation. And what you're looking at here is that God established a hierarchy in Israel. Himself was the head of it. He did note in Deuteronomy that one day Israel would desire to have a king. And their whole philosophy was we want to have a king because we want to be like everybody else. And not only that, we want to have a king that other nations would look at us and think, wow, pretty cool, we have a pretty cool king there. Pretty childish, but that's the way people think, man. It's like, oh, wow, man, we want your king. Yeah, man, whatever. But he told them that, I have a little passage here, I'm not going to read it, but before all that happened, God did not tell him, all right, tell the Israelites, you're going to go in there, and I'm going to put judges over you. He basically delineated the 12 tribes, delineated different families in there, and there was things on the smaller level, on the clan level, if you will, things that would be tribal, tribally, on a tribal level, Becky uses that word, tribal Indians, there you go, yes, tribal. And then there was really no national, government per se. Everybody, the tribal governments and the local governments, they would mediate over things. They would execute if there were things that really execute sometimes when things happen. But really, everybody's left on their own. You have, there was a idea that you would govern yourself. Now, when you look at here in these two verses here, there are two things that we have to mention that we have to accept when it comes to man's authority. When you're looking at authority, there's two things that everybody, no matter who you are, if you're walking this earth, if you're walking, you have to make these cognitive decisions. Number one, you have to decide who your authority is. You will go ahead and submit yourself to some sort of authority. In this case right here, there was no king in Israel, and man chose to fill that void with himself. I am going to be the master of my own domain. I am going to make my own decisions. And really, the sad thing is, when you get to the second part here, not only do you choose your own master, you decide the criteria by which you follow that authority. You decide the criteria by which you follow that authority. I am going to do my own thing. I am the one who I have subjugated myself to. And not only that, what is the criteria that you have? The criteria that the Israelites had here, every man. I mean, that's pretty, everyone did this. Every man did that which was right, where? In his own eyes. That was his criteria. The criteria is, if I think it's right, I'm going to do it. What that leads to, and this is very familiar with what you have right now, is that there was an absence of absolutes when it came to the rule of Israel. We all made up our decision. What we think we're going to do is right. If I think it's the right thing, I'm going to do it. If it feels good, I'll do it. There were different reasons why somebody might think it's right. And you had basically a criteria set there where man does his own thing. He's his own authority. But they don't realize one thing, and this is something that will come up in the old thing here, as we talk here. But so you have those two things right here when it comes to authority. You have to submit yourself to somebody, and you have to have criteria under which that you operate when you submit yourself to that person or to that ideal or whatever. I am my own boss, and I am going to do what I think is right. Now, there are people that might, and again, that could be something religious, that could be something civil, that could be something philosophical. Whatever I deem to be right, I am going to follow that. So therefore, and by the way, what you're saying there's really no absolute set concrete way that I have to look at things. I will just pick what I think is right, and I'm going to do it. Man does that with religion. And we're going to get to that. Well, we'll get to that more in a minute. So, we'll get to that. But anyway, so number one, man has to decide who he's going to follow and what the criteria is by which he follows that person. All right, next thing is this, all right? Israel was, every man has to, when they do that, they have to decide two things, all right? Number one, if, you have to decide, again, I said this is who your authority is. Take your Bible, turn to Luke chapter 16, look at verse 13. Who that final authority is, let's, turn to Luke chapter 16, verse 13. No master can serve two masters. No servant, can serve two masters. For either he will hate the one and love the other, or else he will hold to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and mammon. You have two things that, and by the way, note there it says no servant can serve two masters. Okay? You're either going to serve God or serve mammon. When it comes to your servitude, what is it that's going to motivate you to be the best servant you can be? What is it? In other words, what are you going to work for? Is it, is your treasure set in heaven? Are you going to work for, work in such a way that you are serving God, and what you get from that is what you're looking for? Or do you serve mammon, which is the world? It's not just money; it's the whole worldly system. And who you serve is basically based on what you want to get out of life. Why is it that people get saved and they don't serve God? Because that's not what they want to get out of life. There's other priorities that they have, so they determine, I'm going to serve mammon. I want to get what the world has for me. I am not setting my affection on things above, but on things here on earth. So you decide, number one, who your final authority is. And number two, you determine what directs or what is the criteria for followership. Take your Bible, turn to Deuteronomy chapter 30. Deuteronomy chapter 30. As everybody looks at it, the one thing I hate about this is that you've got dead time that you just stand here and look done. Now, I do that a lot. You're praying and I'm praying with you too, but I got a camera staring at me in like 5 minutes. You're like, hello. Now you're all turning your Bible to find a passage, and I'm just standing here. I got it written down already, I don't look, and I don't know what I should do while we do that. I don't know, we're fine. Deuteronomy chapter 30, look at verse 15. See, I have set before thee this day life and good, and death and evil. And that I commanded thee this day to love the Lord thy God, to walk in his ways, and to keep his commandments and statutes and judgments, that thou mayest live and multiply. And the Lord thy God shall bless thee in the land whither thou goest to possess it. But if thy heart turn away, so that thou wilt not hear, but thou shalt be drawn away, and worship other gods and serve them, I denounce unto you this day, ye shall surely perish, and that ye shall not prolong your days upon the land whither thou passest over Jordan. So you've got two choices there. The way Moses put it, you've got life and good, or you've got death and evil. All right? One, and if you choose the good path, that leads to life. You choose the evil, that means you can work your way to be saved. But the wrong way is, the wages of sin is death. The soul that sinneth, it shall die. It's quite clear there. You have to decide right there, what is it? You can either follow the Lord's way and things, and have life and it's good, or you cannot and you have evil and death follow after it. Hey, your choice. Joshua said the same thing, Joshua 24, choose ye this day who you will serve. As for me and my house, we shall serve the Lord. There's a choice, and I preached about this on Sunday. I know I was here when I preached it. One of the things that Joel was talking about is that you have a decision to make. Let the heathen come to the mountain, to the mountain of judgment of Jehoshaphat. You have to make that decision. So we decide who we serve, and we decide how, what is it that we're going to use as criteria. Look, there are people that choose to serve God, but they don't have the right criteria. There's people like they give themselves over to the priesthood and become a priest. Well, they want to serve God, but that's not the right. That's not the right direction to go in. It's what the Bible teaches, where you go into a religion that's not biblical. You have the intent, well, I want to serve God, but you choose a path that is not biblical. So you can have the right intention and do it the wrong way. There's a way that seemeth right in a man, but the ways thereof are the way, the end thereof is the way of death. You might have the right intention, but if you don't have the right criteria, that doesn't, for by grace you are saved through faith, and that not of yourselves. It's not just faith, it's where's that faith placed? It's placed in the grace of God. There are people out there that have faith in the wrong thing. They have faith in their faith is misplaced. And so therefore, that dog just don't hunt. Your faith has to be in the right place. So now, when they went in there, when they went into the promised land, Israel was given a law to follow which governed three things. All right? And these three things were which God expected the people to follow. And that's up to you. That's self-government. Here's the law I'm giving you. You do not have a king. You're not. There's somebody not overlooking or who's reigning over you, who's going to give you statutes and precepts and judgments. Oh my! You're going to get, and these are the things that will dictate what you do. Number one, God gave them a law by which they would worship. Okay? This is what you're supposed to do in regards to worshiping me. Take your Bible, you're in Deuteronomy, turn to chapter 17, and listen and look at verse 12. Chapter 17, verse 12. And the man that will do presumptuously, and will not hearken unto the priest that standeth to minister there before the Lord thy God, or unto the judge, even that man shall die, and thou shalt put away the evil from Israel. There was a way they were told to worship. This is what I want you to do. There was a consequence to not doing it right. And so therefore, they were given and again, they were given that option. Now, there was a steep price to pay if you didn't do it right, but that was the way that God said, this is how I want you to worship me. This is how I want you to listen to what the priest tells you. This is what, and you had to now accept. Am I going to submit myself to, am I going to what he says? And am I going to accept the criteria which he lays out? You might say, well, I'm just going to worship God on my own. Well, that dog don't hunt. I said that already, never mind. That just doesn't work. Well, I'm going to follow the priest, but I will change it, and, I'll take shortcuts. He says sacrifice this. Yeah, I don't know, maybe I'll go with that. Well, no, that was really an option. You are to follow what the priest tells you, and you do it the way I tell him to tell you to do it. And if you don't do it, well, there's a steep price to pay, and even that man shall die. Not good. But that was the way it is. Now, there's a second criteria, and that was a man was given a law to follow in regards to society. My interactions with other people. There's, and this one I'm not even going to turn them, but when you look at the Ten Commandments, a lot of that is your interaction with others. Thou shalt not kill. It's good advice. Black people. Thou shalt not steal. It's good advice. Thou shalt not commit adultery. It's good advice. Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's goods. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's 2017 Buick Encore. Stuff like that. It's in there. Don't covet my Encore. Or whatever. But you are given law by which you function in society. And God expected them to follow this. And the old saying is the 10 Commandments, not the 10 suggestions.
Yeah.
And this was what God expected them to follow. So there would be, again, if you don't have law, you have anarchy. If you get rid of the standards that are there and let things go, you have people doing that which is right in their own eyes, and that's when you get into turmoil. What you see going on right now is you have a dumping of lawfulness, and people just deciding, all right, this is the right thing. This is what we think is right. And man's standards are always fluctuating. What we got going on right now, where you're told for 2 months, you can't go outside and stay indoors and save lives, and then you see thousands of people gathering together, and there's no complaint about that. And yet, I've heard 2 public officials say, we're still keeping you're still not supposed to do this, you're still not supposed to go to church, you're still not supposed to do this, you're still not supposed to go to these certain things, but this is important enough for us to let them go ahead and do all that. Well, you're killing yourself with two ends. Number one, you're saying the Black Lives Matter, but if they get COVID-19, who cares? What sense does that make? I don't know. I mean, that's systemic. You want systemic, that's systemic right there. Where you think that there's a public health issue, but you let them go ahead and break it anyways. Whatever. That's stunada. I mean, that's just, hey, but number two, you're also determining what causes are important and what's not. You know, with the Plaza, you know, that worthless bum that runs New York City. Did I just say that? I did. Rewind the tape. No. That bum that runs New York said, well, these people are protesting 400 years of prejudice, of racism, and so it's okay. And he goes back to say, you know, the colony of Jamestown was founded in 1607, 1619, they brought the first slaves there. Three things they had. What are the three things that happened in 1619? First slaves, first women, and then they had the House of Burgesses, the first government that was set up, the New World was set up there. I taught that a million times. Good grief. There's things that you just can't say. Good grief. I did this fix with you. But anyway, so that's okay. Well, I'm sorry. I have an eternal word of God that was given to me. 2,000 years ago, I was told for saying not to be assembling yourself. Mine beats yours. Sorry. But you know what? That's fine. You want to let them meet, go right ahead. But then don't tell me that my cause is not important enough for me to meet either. That right there is just insane. Well, but that's where you find yourself these days. Again, you know, liberalism sometimes just makes no sense at all. And that's the way it is. And I'm not being political, but if you're Democrat and liberal, you're a Republican and liberal, I don't care what you are. This is not a political thing, it's just that when you get away from the Word of God, you see a bunch of things, you know, it's just, you know, it's foolishness.
Yes.
You know, the shoes on the other foot, they think the preaching of the cross is foolishness. You know, to them, the parents, they think what we do is crazy.
Yeah.
And so it's not, I totally get that, the preaching of the cross is foolishness, and then the parents, Paul wrote Corinthians, that's fine, I get that. But so they have the right to choose the way they live. I have the right to choose the way I live. They have the right to choose what they were going to gather for. Not yourself found. But then don't tell me I don't have that same right. You know, that, well, this cause is okay, but your cause is not. It's, you know, when the president, when a Republican president stands before a church and holds the Bible up and everybody flips out, but then there's the Democrats kneeling down in the church and nothing happens with that, you know that there's this bias out there towards anything that's not what they believe. Look, you know, as a country, when you talk about diversity, when you talk about acceptance, you know, that's fine. It's a free country. I'm not saying certain things are right, certain things are right, things are wrong biblically, but you have that right to live that way in America. But you don't have the right to tell somebody else that you can't do that because I don't agree with you. You can't go to church because I don't agree with you. Your cause ain't as important as me. Well, phenomenal. You know, that's crazy. You know, phenomenal means go to Naples. Believe it or not, in Italian, which means literally they consider Naples the worst place in Italy, so you want somebody to go to Naples, will you? It's like saying, go to Lackawanna. You know, Lackawanna, it was bad because my kid lives here. Go to Lackawanna. You know, but that's how it is. So, you know, that right there, well, back to what I was saying before I was so brutally interrupted by myself, how to function in society. These rules were given. And number three, there's how you function as an individual, and as sidebars that as a family and as a couple, as a husband and wife. There were things that were set as a criteria there. So number one, God gives you the choice who you follow, and God gives you the choice of what you base or what your criteria is when you follow that person. Number two, that God gave us something, or you know, and with this, God told us it's not, you can't serve two masters. God told us that, you know, you could either choose good in life or evil in death. I mean, the choice is up to you. God gave Israel a law to follow which governed three things. It governed worship, it governed society in general, and it governed the family, and slash the individual, and slash the couple. Those three things God gave them, and that's what kept things orderly. You know, when people followed these things, you had orderliness. Now, number 4 is this. Judges show man was given self-government, but also accountability to God for what they did. There's also accountability to God for what he did. That's what the whole book's about. Their accountability to God. A king did not step in and punish people for not doing these things that they were told to do. You were told to worship this way. You were told to function this way in society. You were told that your family was to do this. You also have no God before me. Well, there's a lot of spiritual whoredom that went on in Israel, and that affected the family. The Israelites came in, they would have kids, and instead of getting rid of the people that lived there, like God said, they let their kids marry the kids that already lived there. Well, now they went off after their gods. And so they were doing, there was that accountability to God that was demonstrated throughout the whole book of Judges. When you saw the Philistines come in, that was God's judgment. When you saw the Hittites come in, that was God's judgment. When you saw the king, this was all God's judgment. This was all God making them accountable for their actions. Now, and you see that today. All right? When a nation sins, there is that accountability to God. Say what you want. And the funny thing is, and here's the weird thing, a lot of people, and using our country as an example here, don't want to recognize what happens as God's hand in judgment. Matter of fact, you would say that, and you get castigated. You get looked at like you grew a second head. You get treated heathenly. Well, God, now it used to be when people got mad when you brought it up. Now people just mock you and don't even want to hear it. But you got that. 2 Chronicles 16:9. For the eyes of the Lord run to and fro throughout the whole earth, to show himself strong in behalf of those whose heart is perfect towards him. Herein thou hast done foolishly, therefore from henceforth thou shalt have wars. That was God talking to Asa. Because you did this, you're going to have wars. Your actions are going to have consequences. We don't live in a vacuum. Number one, it would be pretty tight quartered and disgusting with all that lint in there and that dirt. But we don't let our actions have consequences. When Asa did what he did wrong, God certainly noticed it.
Yes.
And the people of Israel had wars because of what he did. Again, the whole book of Judges is the picture of accountability to God. You are left to govern yourself, but don't think that your actions, that nobody's going to see what you're doing, and you're going to get away scot-free with what you're doing. I will use this term appropriately now. There's a time where the chickens will come home to roost. And I'm not going to use it like that dog used it in regards to 9/11, but that's about what, God said here, that your sin will find you out. Be sure your sin will find you out. And so there was that accountability here that Israel had. They were supposed to govern themselves. They were given the law so that they knew what God expected from them as a family, God expected it from them as a society, and how God expected them to worship Him. Those three things. And that was up to them to follow this law, and they were accountable for what they did and what they did not. Proverbs 15:3 says, the eyes of the Lord are in every place, beholding the evil and good. There is always accountability to God on any nation's level. You read the minor prophets, and you see, for example, which one is it? It was Nahum that talked about Nineveh and the judgment God was going to have on them for what they did, Jonah also as well. You look at Israel going to Syria for their sin. You look at Judah going to Babylon for their sin. And there's other examples of where God did things so that because of the sin of a people. Look what happened to the Egyptians when they sinned. Not good, man, not good. So God, justice shows man was given self-government, but the accountability to God, and there was that accountability to God for what they did. I think part of the thing, and I'll finish with this at 8 o'clock, I gotta end right here. It's weird, 8 o'clock, we're here late. Ooh, I don't think we've ever been here this late before. Ooh, 8 o'clock. Man, I gotta go to bed, my bedtime. No, I'm not kidding either. I gotta go to bed by 9, man. I don't know. I get up early every day, but I'm in bed by 9. It's last night I couldn't sleep. I was up till 1 or something. All this stuff going on here. This bad stuff. Kept you up for a while. But you have the, this self-government accountability to God for what they did. Take your Bible one more place and look at Deuteronomy 27:19. Let me just end with this. There are a way that God will go ahead and judgment and execute judgment, and that's part of what government was set up for. Romans 13:4 says this, that I didn't even write the whole thing down. Turn to that one real quick while you're looking at yours. Romans 13:4 says, "For he is the minister of God to thee for good. But if thou do that which is evil, be afraid, for he beareth not the sword in vain, for he is the minister of God, a revenger to execute wrath upon him that doeth evil." When you look at Deuteronomy chapter 27, verse 19, cursed be he that perverteth the judgment of the stranger, fatherless, and widow. And all the people shall say, Amen. When you are, God does use man to execute judgment. Whether you're looking at government, whether you're looking at, in the case of government, there is an expectation that God has when they are in power. The idea there is, Paul said, bearing the sword, bears not the sword in vain. There is a expectation that God has. He expects you to execute what he wants you to do, and he expects you to execute it fairly. Not pervert judgment, not let things go on that should not go on, and not also punish people that are innocent. Those people are in power. There's a accountability. When you're in leadership, there's an accountability to God you have for how you lead. Every pastor has to give an account to God. Paul wrote in Hebrews, who gives an account for your soul. I have to give an account for how I pastor. How I pastored in Bruceburg, how I pastored in Niagara Falls, how I pastored here. I have that accountability to God for what I do as a pastor. If you're in government, and it's a father and a husband, there's that accountability. I'm the head of my household. She lets me. Well, except Pedro lets me. My dog lets me, that's why. But I have that accountability to God for how I lead. It's not like I can just lead and I just have carte blanche to do whatever I want. I'm accountable to God. The same thing goes with government. When you are in authority, you are accountable to God for those two things, for making sure that you execute wrath upon he that doeth evil, and to make sure that you don't pervert judgment, that your judgment is fair, accordingly, and lawful. A lot of people today that are really got to come up with when it comes to this stuff. Judgment is perverted. They don't, they bear the sword in vain, and God is going to hold them accountable for what they do. God, everybody in power, where they are, they're ordained to God to be there. Yeah. It's not like, God looked down one day and said, "Oh man, how did the Glasgow guy get me here?" That's ordained. Didn't even Cuomo. How that happened? God didn't just look down one day and say, "Oh man, I don't know what happened there." No, God is the one who ordained them to be there, but they are accountable to him. For how they, for number one, how they execute wrath, how they do evil, and number two, that they don't pervert judgment. That's what they're accountable to God for. So when you look at that, there was no king in Israel, but every man did that which was right in his own eyes. Every man made himself king. That was self-government. Every man's criteria is what I think is right. God gave them a law, told them how to worship, he told them how to interact in society, and he told them how to have a family and raise a family. And Israel struck out on all three things. Instead of worshiping God, they went after idols. Instead of, you had society that had anarchy, all right? And Noah had society had an anarchy too, but that's different. The Lord told Noah to build an ark. That's totally different. different anarchy. So that's not the first time anarchy reigns, anarchy goes back to Noah. But not only that, God also told them how you raise your family. You know, teach them Bible verses. Make sure they're separate. You don't marry the heathen. And what they did, they went ahead and did their own thing. They married the heathen. You had chaos in society. You read chapter 17 through 21 of Judges, and think, my goodness, this is kind of nuts. Yeah, got a little nutty there. But also worshiping. They decided, no, we're just going to worship our own gods. And there was nobody there to execute judgment. You know, God told them, look, you do this, you'll die if you worship the wrong way. They did. They worshiped the wrong way anyways. God said, all right, you're going to be accountable to me for it. They don't want to execute. There was somebody that was supposed to execute judgment. Remember, let me finish with this. In Exodus, when a guy, there was 2 cases where you had executions. Number 1, there was a guy picking up sticks. Every time I read that, 5, 6, pick up sticks. And on the Sabbath day, they whacked him. They stoned him for what he did. And number 2, there was a couple committing adultery. And the high priest put a spear through both of them. Yeah. That was what was expected on the leadership. Well, that's cruel. That's mean. Well, God said it. Take it up with him. That's what God said. They did what God wanted them to do. When you know the consequence of a sin or an action and you do it, well, you accept the action. You accept the consequence that goes with it. That's what God expected out of leadership. They weren't doing their thing. So therefore, everybody said, you know what, there's no judgment or anything I have to worry about. I'm just going to do my own thing. And when they did that, God executed judgment. God would go ahead and put them in the position they were in because they turned their back on the law that God gave them. God said, look, I'm expecting you to follow through with this. But he's also expecting people in authority to carry out what needed to be carried out. They didn't, so they did their own thing. And God stepped in and said, all right, I'll take care of it. And so there's always that accountability to God. You can't get around that. Man might fail in regards to as far as lawfulness goes. They might bear the sword in vain. They might pervert judgment. But there's still that accountability to God, and we can't get around that. Father, we thank you, Lord, for loving us. Thank you, Lord, that you're a God of order. We have a book today that we can follow that gives us orderliness in our life. The law you gave to Israel, Father, was to have a lawful society. You told them how to worship. You told them how to interact in society. You told them how to interact as a family. And God, Israel failed on that. They did their own thing. They worshipped false gods. They interacted in society and did their own thing. They didn't raise their kids the way they were supposed to. They married off the heathen and they worshiped false gods. Lord, and they were accountable for what they did. There was no execution and judgment. There was a perversion of judgment. And so you stepped in. So Father, help us to learn today from this. Help us to learn that you are a God of law and order, that you are beholding the evil and the good. And Lord, that there's no non-accountability for our actions when it comes to you. We sure our sin will find you out. Whether that's a person or a nation, Lord, our sin will find us out. Bless us now as we go our way. Thank you, Lord, for being with us here tonight, Lord. We love you. Thank you for loving us. In Jesus' name, amen. So it's curfew time. I'm sorry, I'm going to be done here. I'm saying this is
Church,